Is faith just a gentle whisper in a storm, or could it be the storm itself, a force that can actually reshape your life from the ground up? Lots of people see it as a quiet comfort, a set of beliefs they hold. But what if the truth is something much more active, more powerful? What if faith isn't just about what you think, but a deep catalyst that fundamentally changes how you act, how you think, and maybe even how you experience reality? We're not just talking about feeling a bit better, we're talking about a documented ability to shift human behavior and mental states. It might make you question what you thought you knew. Welcome. Today, we're looking into a question that's been around forever but often gets oversimplified or just plain misunderstood. Does faith really change your life? And if it does, how? Now, we're not here to debate whether a higher power exists. Instead, we're asking something more down to earth, but just as deep. Is faith just a passive thing, a collection of nice stories and rituals? Or is it a dynamic, life-altering force that can actually reshape your day-to-day actions and build up your mental strength in ways science is only now starting to get its head around? We'll look past the personal stories, interesting as they are, and check out the research on moral behavior, mental well-being, and what's going on psychologically when someone believes. You might be surprised at how deeply faith, or being actively engaged with it, can connect with our ability to bounce back from tough times, our ethical choices, and even how much control we feel we have over our own lives. We'll see how it can build stronger family ties and inspire people to serve others. But we're not going to ignore the tricky parts or the potential downsides, because the shocking truth is rarely straightforward. This isn't about trying to win you over to any particular viewpoint. It's about uncovering the many ways this powerful human experience can affect us. So, whether you're someone with deep faith, a skeptic, or somewhere in the middle, this is for you. We want to show how faith, as an active principle, might just be one of the most powerful, and maybe overlooked, agents of change in a person's life. So, let's start by figuring out what we even mean by faith when we talk about it changing things. When we say faith, what are we really talking about? For a lot of us, the word brings up images of religious rules, holy books, and group worship. And sure, those are parts of it. But the kind of faith that can truly change a life often goes way beyond just agreeing that certain ideas are true. It's not just about believing that something exists, it's more about a living, breathing trust and commitment that actively shapes how you see things and what you do. Think of it like this: there's a difference between believing a map is correct and actually using that map to find your way through a dangerous area. One is just a mental nod, the other is actively relying on it. Research tells us that how intense and personal faith is plays a big part in its power to transform. A faith that's just a label or something social might have a little influence, but a deeply personal, internalized faith becomes a core part of who you are and the lens through which you see and interact with the world. This active kind of faith isn't about a life without problems. In fact, it's a common misunderstanding that faith just makes problems disappear or brings instant peace. History and personal stories often show the opposite. Tough times can actually build and deepen real faith. Instead, this faith gives perspective, the will to keep going, and a sense of purpose through life's challenges. It's about how people respond to what life throws at them, armed with a particular conviction or trust. And faith isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. It can show up as religious faith, rooted in specific traditions and communities. But it can also be a wider spiritual conviction, a deep belief in some kind of transcendent purpose, or even a strong trust in certain principles or values that guide your life. The common thread? This isn't something passive. It means ongoing engagement, a process of making it real where people actively work to connect with and live by their deepest convictions. For example, Stanford anthropologist Tanya Luhrmann suggests that prayer can be a bit like cognitive behavioral therapy, a way to pay attention to what's going on inside you and focus on positive thoughts. Neuroscience is also starting to give us clues about what's happening in the brain during religious or spiritual experiences. Studies show these experiences can involve complex interactions between brain networks linked to thinking about ourselves, paying attention and solving problems, and processing emotions. Some research even hints that, in terms of brain function, talking to God can look a lot like talking to a close friend. This backs up the idea of faith as an active, relational thing. So, for our discussion, when we ask if faith changes your life, we're not talking about a casual nod to a belief system. We're looking at the impact of a deeply felt, actively engaged conviction that becomes a real driving force in someone's thoughts, feelings, and, importantly, their actions. It's a faith that isn't just kept on a shelf but is taken out and used, every day, with every decision. This difference is really important because it's this active faith that seems to pack the biggest transformative punch. So, if faith is more than just something in our heads, how does it actually show up in the way people live? Well, the evidence suggests its fingerprints are all over a lot of personal behaviors, especially when it comes to morality and serving others. People who are actively involved in faith communities, or who have a strong personal faith, often show a greater tendency to do altruistic things. This means volunteering, donating to charity, and actively helping people in need, both locally and further afield. These actions often come straight from the ethical and moral teachings found in many faith traditions, which highlight compassion, justice, and caring for others. The research here has its subtleties. While faith clearly influences behaviors tied to religious or moral teachings, its impact might be less direct on other parts of life, like purely financial decisions, everyday political involvement not linked to moral issues, or entertainment choices. Many people might not draw a strong, conscious line between their faith and these more secular areas of their lives. This tells us that faith isn't the sole decider of every single action, but it is a powerful motivator in specific, often value-driven, situations. However, when faith is an active part of making decisions, it can act like a strong internal compass. It can give people a framework for making choices that line up with their deepest values, even when those choices are tough or go against the grain. This internal guide can be especially strong when people face moral dilemmas or temptations. For instance, studies have found that those whose faith is a core part of their identity are less likely to do dishonest things like cheat. Similarly, a strong commitment to faith has been linked to being less likely to blindly follow an authority figure who orders harmful actions. This impact on behavior also reaches into our relationships. Faith often plays a big part in shaping family dynamics and values. Religious families often report stronger connections, more positive relationships, and greater unity, frequently nurtured by shared beliefs and practices like praying together or observing religious holidays. These shared experiences can create a real sense of togetherness and mutual support. What's more, faith can be a source of hope and resilience within families, helping them get through challenges and fostering optimism. The way values are passed down through generations is also key here. Children are more likely to adopt their parents' positive beliefs and values if they have a good relationship and see those values lived out consistently day to day. But what's the surprising part here? Maybe it's just how consistent and widespread these behavioral shifts can be when faith is genuinely and deeply a part of someone. It's not just about doing a few good deeds here and there, but potentially about fundamentally repatterning habitual responses and priorities. The desire to live consistently with one's faith can lead to conscious efforts to develop virtues like patience, forgiveness, and honesty, which then show up in everyday interactions. This doesn't mean people of faith are perfect, or that those without faith can't be highly moral. It just points to a specific way a significant number of people are motivated towards certain positive social and ethical behaviors. The surprise might be in realizing that what some people write off as just belief can be a powerful and observable driver of real-world action, shaping not just individual lives but also adding to the broader social fabric through more community involvement. Beyond what we can see people do, perhaps one of the deepest ways faith can reshape us is on the inside, our mental state, our emotional world, and our ability to bounce back. A lot of research points to a generally positive link between faith and various signs of mental well-being. People who identify as religious or spiritual often say they experience more happiness, life satisfaction, and better overall morale. For example, studies have found that young adults who engaged in religious practices like attending services or daily prayer and meditation when they were younger were more likely to report greater happiness and positivity later on. This suggests faith can lay a groundwork for a more optimistic outlook. A key part of this connection is how faith can help people cope with stress and hard times. Life inevitably throws challenges our way: loss, illness, disappointment. Faith can offer a way to understand these difficulties, not as random, meaningless suffering, but perhaps as part of a bigger story or as chances for growth. It can help turn worry into prayer or focused thought, fear into a sense of courage backed by trust, and mistakes into lessons. This whole process builds resilience, that ability to get back up after being knocked down. Some studies suggest that religious coping strategies, especially those that involve looking at things in a positive new light and seeking spiritual support, are linked to greater resilience and fewer symptoms of distress like anxiety and depression. For instance, research shows that religious coping can be associated with increased growth after trauma. Social support is another really important way faith affects mental health. Faith communities often provide a ready-made network of supportive relationships, a sense of belonging that can fight off loneliness and isolation, which are major risk factors for mental health problems. For many, this community aspect offers practical help, emotional comfort, and shared understanding. As we touched on earlier, brain imaging studies even suggest that praying or talking to God can activate brain pathways similar to those used in social interaction with a close friend. This reinforces that feeling of connection and support, even in a more personal, internal way. On top of that, faith is often linked to positive personality traits like optimism and self-esteem. Believing in a benevolent higher power or a meaningful universe can encourage a more hopeful view of the future and a stronger sense of self-worth. It can also influence an individual's sense of control, shifting them from feeling like a passive victim of circumstances to an active participant in a life with purpose. The meaning and purpose that faith can offer are big predictors of overall well-being. However, and this is important, the relationship between faith and mental well-being isn't always positive or simple. This is part of the shocking truth. It's complicated. Some religious teachings or community dynamics can, in certain situations or for certain people, actually add to anxiety, guilt, depression, or unhealthy behaviors. For example, feelings of religious guilt or the sense of failing to meet religious expectations can be a source of distress. Some studies have even noted links between certain religious groups and higher rates of specific health issues, like obesity, though the reasons for this are complex. The type of religious coping also matters a lot. While positive religious coping is generally good for you, negative religious coping can be harmful to mental health. Recent research has also looked into the neuroscience of spirituality and mental health. It's found that practices like meditation and prayer, often part of faith traditions, can lead to measurable changes in brain structure and function. Think increased cortical thickness in prefrontal regions, which might help with depression. Studies during the COVID-19 pandemic even suggested that religious faith might have helped protect some people against increased distress and reduce well-being, possibly by providing psychological resources, coping skills, and social support, even if it was accessed online. So, the mind-faith connection is a powerful one. For many, faith acts as a strong psychological resource, encouraging positive emotions, resilience, and a sense of connection. But its impact depends on the nature of the faith, the individual, the community, and the coping styles they use. It's not a magic pill, but a complex, deeply personal factor that can profoundly shape our inner landscape. Throughout our chat, we've hinted at the shocking truth about faith's power to change your life. So, what is it, exactly? Well, the shocking truth isn't one single, flashy revelation. It's more like a combination of several realities that we often underestimate. First, the sheer measurable depth and breadth of faith's influence is, frankly, pretty startling when you look beyond just casual observation. We're not just talking about making people feel better in some vague way. As we've seen, research from psychology, sociology, and even neuroscience is documenting real, tangible impacts on moral decision-making, helping others, family closeness, mental health, greater resilience, and even how people cope with major life crises like a pandemic. The fact that deeply held beliefs can translate into such consistent patterns of behavior and psychological states is a pretty profound testament to the power of the human mind and spirit when they're anchored by conviction. Faith doesn't just comfort, it can actively rewire how we respond and see things. Second, a key shocking element is that how faith brings about change often has less to do with the specific rules of a particular faith and more to do with the fundamental psychological and social processes that active faith gets going. It's about how faith nurtures a sense of meaning and purpose. It's about how it builds social connection and support. It's about how it encourages specific ways of coping, like positive reframing or seeking spiritual comfort. It's about how practices like prayer or meditation, common in many faiths, can actually mirror therapeutic techniques, influencing brain activity and how we manage our emotions. This means that the power to transform isn't just for one belief system over another, it lies in engaging with a framework that provides these psychological resources. This is why even broader spirituality, not tied to organized religion, can have similar benefits. The surprise here is how universal these underlying mechanisms seem to be. Third, the nuances and conditions are a big part of this truth. Faith isn't a cure-all, and its effects aren't uniformly positive for everyone. This is a really important and often missed point. Research shows that certain religious expressions or experiences can actually be sources of distress, anxiety, or unhealthy behaviors. Negative religious coping, feeling punished by God, internalizing harmful ideas, or being part of judgmental faith communities, can make mental health worse. The shocking truth includes the fact that faith, like any powerful force, can have a shadow side if it becomes rigid, fear-based, or disconnected from compassion and healthy psychological functioning. Some people may leave organized religion after experiencing mistreatment or a clash of beliefs, and for them, rebuilding a life with new sources of meaning and community becomes vital. Another startling realization is the active role of the individual in making faith real. It's not like you just passively receive benefits. As anthropologist Tanya Luhrmann points out, people often work hard to make supernatural beings or transcendent principles feel real in their lives, and it's through this active effort that change often happens. This active participation, the rituals, the prayer, the study, the community involvement, the conscious effort to live by one's values, is what sparks and sustains the transformative power. The surprising part here is that faith isn't just something you have, it's something you do. Finally, perhaps the biggest shocking truth of all is that faith, in its deepest sense, isn't just a set of beliefs about an afterlife or the divine. It's a powerful, this worldly force that can fundamentally change how people navigate their daily lives, interact with others, and respond to being human. It can be a source of immense strength, resilience, moral guidance, and community connection. The real surprise might be for those who dismiss faith as irrational or irrelevant to modern life to recognize its deep psychological roots and its provable ability to encourage positive change in measurable ways. It's a fundamental human experience that continues to shape lives with an intensity that really deserves our understanding, whether we share those beliefs or not. The evidence points not to some quaint relic of the past, but to an ongoing, dynamic force in the human story. We've covered some complex ground today, looking at the deep and often surprising ways faith can impact our lives. But this conversation doesn't have to end here. What are your experiences? Has faith, or the lack of it, shaped your actions, your resilience, or your outlook on life? Share your thoughts and respectful insights in the comments below. Your perspective is valuable, and we can all learn from each other. If this exploration resonated with you, or if it made you think, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more looks into the fascinating aspects of human experience and personal growth. Click that notification bell so you don't miss our future content where we continue to explore the ideas that shape our world. So, does faith really change your life? The evidence, from personal stories to scientific research, overwhelmingly suggests that yes, it can, often in very deep and varied ways. We've seen that faith, when it's understood as an active, internalized force rather than just passive belief, can significantly shape personal behaviors, particularly pushing us towards moral and service-oriented actions. It can boost mental well-being by increasing happiness, building resilience against adversity, and providing vital social support. It can strengthen family bonds and offer a guiding framework for navigating life's complexities. The shocking truth isn't just that faith has an impact, but rather the depth, breadth, and the underlying ways it makes that impact. It's recognizing that the power of faith often lies in its ability to tap into fundamental psychological needs, for meaning, purpose, connection, and coping. It's understanding that practices developed within faith traditions can have effects similar to recognized therapeutic interventions. However, the truth is also nuanced. Faith's influence isn't a universal fix-all. Its effects depend on the nature of that faith, how the individual engages with it, and the context of their community. Negative expressions of faith or unhealthy religious coping can indeed lead to negative outcomes. When all is said and done, faith appears to be a powerful catalyst for change because it engages the whole person, their beliefs, emotions, actions, and relationships. It offers a lens through which to see the world and a motivation to act within it. Whether one attributes this power to the divine, to psychological processes, or to a mix of both, its capacity to reshape daily actions and mental states is a significant part of the human experience. It's a force that, for many, turns belief into being, and that being into a life lived with deeper conviction and resilience. Thanks for joining me on this exploration.